Good morning. The Hearing Board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is Tuesday, February 26, 2019, and the time is just after 9 o'clock a.m., and we are meeting in the Hearing Board room in Diamond Bar. Today we have two items on the calendar. One is a pre-hearing teleconference later at 2 o'clock, and only one matter on our regular agenda, which is SCAQMD versus Bubbles Dry Cleaners, case number 6132-1 for an order for abatement. And who is representing the executive officer today?
Stacy Pruitt for the executive officer.
Thank you. And who is representing Bubbles Dry Cleaners today? And if you could just turn on the microphone.
It's Luke Nahabedian.
Thank you. Mr. Habedian?
Yes.
And Mr. Abedian, could you spell both your first and your last name for the record?
Yeah, Luke, Luke, Nahabedian, Nahabedian.
Thank you, Mr. Nahabedian. I'm going to just begin with a few. First, I just want to mark, we have received, I'm going to mark it as Exhibit 1, a proposed findings and decision for order for abatement, and that is from the district, so we'll mark it again as Exhibit number 1. Mr. Nahabedian, do you have a copy of that? Have you seen that proposed order?
Yes.
Okay, and have you had an opportunity to read it?
Yeah, I read it.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process, because I'm pretty sure you have never been before the hearing board before. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the way it's going to work today is Ms. Pruitt, on behalf of the district, is going to present any witnesses and evidence that she may have, including any notices of violation, and the witnesses include inspectors, et cetera. Each person that she introduces is going to give testimony, and then I'm going to ask you if you have any questions for each witness. And the board will also have an opportunity to ask questions. We'll also allow you an opportunity after that to add anything that you wish to add on your behalf, on your position on this matter. And then again, Ms. Pruitt will ask you questions, and the hearing board will also ask you questions. And I should have started with, I'm going to ask each of you, if you would like, to present an opening statement, which is merely a brief summary of your position. And then you can give more evidence later, more testimony after that. Does that make sense? If you have any questions, this would be a great time.
Okay.
Okay. And then what we'll do is we're going to deliberate and discuss what we've heard today, and then we'll make a decision on the proposed order that's before us. And if you could turn off your cell phone at this time or silence it.
Just 1 minute, please.
And everyone else at this point would be the perfect time to do that. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Nahabedian if you and also anyone who wishes to testify either on behalf of the district today or anyone who wishes to give public comment to please rise at this time to be sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Pruitt, if you would give your opening statement. Do you need a moment off the record, or? I think your microphone is off.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. The district filed the order for abatement in this matter after Bubbles Dry Cleaners was issued a third NOV for unpermitted dry cleaning units and or constructing equipment without a permit. The first was issued August 9th, 2016, the second issued December 7th, 2016, and the third issued October 11th, 2016. On the compliance visit from the inspector on August 5th, the respondent had an Amelin 45D and an Amelin 35D working at the time of the visit, and both were unpermitted. At the time of the next visit, on December 7, 2016, he had Amelin 45D and 35D working and unpermitted. At the time of the third visit, the Amelin Universal 31882 had been removed, and it had been replaced with Union Model HL860. Presently, the testimony of our inspector will show that one of the units, the Amelin Universal, is inoperable to his understanding, and the Union Model is operating without a permit. Since we filed this order for abatement, the respondent, Mr. Nahabedian, has requested a permit for the Amelin, for the Union Model HL860 that is operating. And so he is now in compliance. However, the Amelin Universal model is still on the premises, and he says that it is inoperable. However, it is still unpermitted. And we would ask that he render it inoperable to our satisfaction or remove it within 60 days from this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pruitt. Mr. Nahabedian, would you like at this time to give a brief opening statement on your position?
There is nothing to dispute for what she said, and I'm in agreement of what she is suggesting that we should do. And the machine that is unoperable now, it's not being used, and if there is anything that can be done to be disconnected, probably it's been disconnected. I'm not a mechanical thing, but probably the guy that works on the machine knows how to handle that. It is not working, and we are willing to remove it maybe within 60 days or 90 days or whatever permission you guys give us. And I already applied for the permit. I don't know, the lady at the permit desk said that it could have been probably ready by now or sometime within the next few days. All the fees are paid. And whatever the board suggests, we are willing to cooperate and do whatever is needed so that we can continue working.
Thank you, Mr. Nahabedian. I think when we get to Mr. Nahabedian's part of the matter, if there's no objection, we'll accept his opening statement as testimony. Is that okay with the district, Ms. Pruitt?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then we'll ask if there's anything else you'd like to add at that time. But if you can introduce your first witness, and I know you mentioned, and I think we were aware before we went on the record, there are some incorrect dates, and I think that you might have misspoken the third date in your opening, and so if you can just make sure with your witnesses that we go through the petition and make sure, the petition and the proposed order, and make sure we've got the correct dates where they are.
Thank you. The people called Davian Vernon. Good morning, Mr. Vernon. You've been sworn in, correct? Did you raise your hand when she swore the witnesses in?
I did.
And can you state your name again for the record?
My name is Davian Vernon.
And what is your occupation and assignment?
I'm an air quality inspector in the Office of Compliance and Enforcement.
And Mr. Vernon, can you just spell your name for the record?
My first name is spelled D-A-V as in Victor, I-A-N as in Nancy. And my last name is V as in Victor, E-R-N as in Nancy, O as in Oscar, N as in Nancy.
And were you so assigned on October 11, 2017?
I was.
And how long have you been an inspector?
I began my tenure with the district in August of 2016.
Is Bubbles Dry Cleaners in your area?
Yes, it is.
And is it within the district's basin?
Yes, it is.
Now, have you reviewed the order for abatement in this case?
I have.
And to your knowledge, is it accurate?
Yes, it is.
And did you write an NOV for Bubbles Dry Cleaners?
I did.
And when did you write that NOV?
That NOV was issued October 11th, 2017.
And when was the visit?
That day.
And what did you issue the NOV for?
There are 2 counts listed on that NOV, the first count being a Rule 201 violation for installation of a dry cleaning unit without a permit to construct, as well as a 203A violation for operation without a valid permit.
And do you know which units were on site when you issued that violation?
Yes, there were 2 dry cleaning units on site. The first unit being an Ameland or AMA Universal HC EZ45D. The second unit being a Union HL-860.
Thank you. And were they operating when you arrived?
The Ameland unit was not in operation. However, the Union HL-860 unit was in operation.
And do you know if the Amelin unit was inoperable?
The representative for the facility did inform me that that unit was inoperable at that time.
But to your personal knowledge, you don't know whether or not it was operational?
I do not.
Thank you. And when was the last time that you visited the facility?
I performed a follow-up inspection in December of 2018.
And in the follow-up inspection, what did you find?
I found that the facility was still in operation, and I did note that there was a change to the signage, but they were still operating in the same manner.
Now, what do you mean a change to the signage?
Previously, the signage stated Bubbles Dry Cleaners, and there was a change to Bubbles.net.
Okay. So let me clarify. The Union machine was operating, and the Amelin was the inoperable machine, correct?
That is correct.
Now, do you know if either of those pieces of equipment are permitted? Were permitted on the date that you did the inspection?
Neither were permitted on the date that I performed the inspection.
And did you review the NOVs from any previous inspectors?
Yes, I did.
And were those the same 2 machines that you saw that were there when the other inspectors were there based upon your review of the NOVs?
No, there was a change in the equipment. Previously, the facility was operating 2 Ameland units. One was an HC35 model, and the second was the HC EZ45D that was still on site at the time of my visit.
And so the change was that now one of the ambulance was gone
That is correct.
and it was replaced by a union?
Yes, that is also correct.
No further questions.
Before I ask Mr. Nahabedian if he has questions, will Mr. Vernon be the only inspector, or will you have another inspector to?
Yes, because the information is duplicative since he was the last person to visit.
Okay, I just want to know with regard to questions. Mr. Nahabedian, do you have any questions at this time for Mr. Vernon?
No, Your Honor, I don't have any special questions because
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vernon, I'm sorry, did you go over the first two NOVs? Do you have in your notes or the notes that you reviewed what the actual dates? Because I believe that they, at least one of them has the incorrect year in both the petition and, more importantly, I think the order. Let's just go over the order. So in Exhibit 1, line 12 and line 26 of page 2. So page 2, line 12 and line 26 discusses the inspection and the NOV, and the follow-up compliance inspection. Do you know if those were in 2016 as opposed to 2015?
I do have copies of the NOVs as they were issued, and it shows both were issued in 2016. The first P62168 issued August 9th, 2016, and the second NOV P62172 issued December 7th, 2016.
So then, to the best of your understanding, based upon the NOVs that you reviewed as part of the record of this facility, then you would say that both the dates on line 26 of the follow-up compliance audit, which now would then track the NOV of August 9th, 2015, that's incorrect and should be changed to 2016?
That is correct.
And then back up on the line 12, paragraph 3, the initial compliance inspection, that also, to the best of your understanding, should be 2016. Let me just get the answer.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so, hearing board members, on page 2 of Exhibit 1, which is the proposed order, lines 12 and 26, the date of 2015 should be changed to 2016, just a typo. Would you know, Mr. Vernon, if in the application for the permit on the Union machine, am I saying that correct? Whether or not that all the proper fees were paid, would you know that? I know you're an inspector, but.
I was able to contact Permit Services, and they did note that an application was submitted by the facility, and there is a tracking number on file currently, and that number is 610610.
And based on your understanding of having a tracking number, would that mean that the proper fees were paid and now it is in review at the district?
That is correct.
And it is considered to be then a permit to operate, temporary permit to operate, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I had one other question for you, and that is, I'm looking at the proposed order, and I was listening to Mr. Nahabedian's opening statement where he stated that he would do anything he needed to render the machine, what you refer to as the Amelin machine, inoperable. But in the order on page 4, at the very bottom, line 28, it simply says to remove the equipment and/or render it inoperable. I think it would be helpful to make sure that this order is complied with, should it be granted by the board, to define what it means to be inoperable. As an inspector, what would you look for to know that a machine is, in fact, inoperable?
I would want to see the piping for the unit capped or disconnected, or the electrical control removed or disabled.
And so, is that something that we should add, Ms. Pruitt, Mr. Vernon, to further, for example, by stating, and/or render it inoperable, and you can put in parentheses by capping or piping, or disconnecting the piping or removing the electrical?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so we'll get to that, but I just want to make sure that that's, and this is not stipulated, correct? Or
This is
should-
stipulated.
It is now stipulated.
It's now stipulated.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask Mr. Nahabedian whether or not you understand what Mr. Vernon had just stated means inoperable, and whether you're in agreement with doing that.
Yes, I will be doing that.
Okay, thank you very much. Board members, other questions? Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Vernon? We'll get to Mr. Nahabedian. I didn't mean to jump out of line, but any other questions for Mr. Vernon? Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Pruitt, did you have any other witnesses?
Yes, the people would like to take Mr. Nahabedian on direct.
Okay, and Mr. Nahabedian, that makes sense to you, I assume? Unless you had something else at this time, would you like to add anything, or we could just turn it over to Ms. Pruitt to ask questions?
No, just everything is fine.
Okay, Ms. Pruitt, you may ask questions of Mr.
Thank
Nahabedian.
you. Thank you. Mr. Nahabedian, did you raise your hand to be sworn in this morning?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. And Mr. Nahabedian, can you please once again spell your name for the record?
Luke, L-U-K-E, Nahabedian, N-A-H-A-B-E-D-I-A-N.
Thank you. And do you own Bubbles Dry Cleaners Facility 177347?
Yes,
And how long have you owned Bubbles?
5 years.
And do you have any equipment on site now that requires registration with the South Coast Air Quality Management District?
Now, I don't think so, because we had one that was not registered, and I had registered, and I have the receipt for the payment.
Okay, so is your answer that you have one piece of equipment that needs to be permitted and you have the permit there?
Yes,
And you're saying that the other piece of equipment does not need to be permitted?
not at this time, because as we discussed, we're going to be disconnecting it and eventually remove it from there.
Okay. And is it that your testimony that right now it is inoperable?
It's not operable, yeah, it's inoperable.
And when was the last time that you were able to operate the equipment?
I don't know exactly, but maybe 3 years.
Okay. And is it correct, when you received your first NOV, you had the two Amelin Universal systems on site?
Yes, I did.
And at the time that you received the first NOV, August 9th, 2016, your two systems units were not permitted with the district?
I was under the impression it was permitted, because when I bought the store, it was there, and we thought that the permit was there.
But you have no personal knowledge that the permits were valid on August 9th, 2016?
I was not aware that it was not permitted, but
Did you receive the NOV for that
yes,
time?
yeah.
Okay. And did you receive a second NOV, December 7th, 2016, for the same violations?
Yes,
And would you agree that the systems were not permitted?
yes,
Now, just to be clear, the only unit that is operating right now is the union unit? Is that
Yes.
correct? The one
Yes.
that you just had permitted last Thursday, the 21st? Or applied for the permit, excuse me.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to remove the Amelin unit?
I will be removing the Amelin, but we have a little dispute with the insurance company because I have insurance for since it's not working, and as it probably will be resolved within the next month or two. So
Okay.
as soon as it's done, we will be removing it.
Okay, and did you hear the terms that the inspector suggested to disconnect the power, et cetera? How quickly might you be able to satisfy those?
I will. I will be glad to do that, yeah. Whatever he suggested,
Okay.
to disconnect it or whichever way it is, to show that it will not be, it cannot be operated.
Okay, and how quickly do you think that you can do those things?
I think 2 weeks is the max, probably. Within 2 weeks, I can have it disconnected. If it's not, so
So you can cap it and have the electrical
electrical disconnection.
disconnected? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Nahabedian, I do have a lot of concerns, having read the petition and understanding the history of NOVs, the notices of violation, and the fact that it doesn't seem there has been, at least in the history we've seen, a permitted piece of equipment until just now at the premises. I want to make sure that you understand.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
I keep calling you, there was a permit, a previous
Oh,
permit.
that expired.
That expired.
Right.
in the-
Sorry if I overstated it, thank you for correcting me. But my point is, my question to you is, do you understand that if you bring any of these units on your premises and operate it, it requires a permit, and that permit needs to be regularly renewed?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you now understand that.
Yes.
Are you planning, also I noticed through the history that we see, at least in the petition, that you've always had 2 units. And you just testified that the Amblin is being removed, I think you said, because it's not working. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you planning to replace it?
No.
So you will be operating with only one?
With only one machine, yes.
And is that because the one that you have now is larger or larger capacity?
It is a little larger capacity, and the amount of the business that we are doing, one machine is enough to operate.
Thank you. Those are, I think, all my questions. Ms. Byrd and then Mr. Balagopalan.
If you can disable this equipment within 2 weeks, you made a statement about needing 60 to 90 days for something, and I wasn't sure what you were referring to.
The removal of the machine, we like to have the machine still there because the insurance company will have to come and inspect it yet and to see that that machine was there and it's inoperable so that we can get compensated according to our insurance.
Okay, so you have some type of insurance on this equipment?
Yes.
For breakdown?
Yes.
Okay, some type of warranty?
Yes.
Okay, so, but if you can do this within 2 weeks, I know this is a stipulated order, so if we can do it within 2 weeks, can we change the wording to not be 60 days or some kind of change in wording to accommodate the fact that within 2 weeks it can be rendered inoperable? And the petition itself, are you comfortable with that? The petition right now says rendered inoperable or removed within 60 days. So that basically gives you 60 days to render it inoperable, but today you say it can be inoperable within 2 weeks.
Yes,
So would
I
you be
can-
comfortable with the petition, with the order saying within 2 weeks inoperable
Inoperable,
and
yes.
removed within 60 days?
Remove, I might require a little more time for removal if it is possible, because I don't know how the insurance company is, how soon it will, but inoperable, I can do it as soon as possible.
Okay, so inoperable within 2 weeks.
Would
And
2 week,
then-
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, I'm
The
sorry.
2-week date would be the 12th, so can we make it Friday, March 15th?
Okay, render it inoperable by Friday, March 15th, and removed from the premises within 60 days. Is that,
Can we have 90 days on that, please? To remove the machine from the premises.
May I ask one follow-up question?
Yeah, so we can get this.
Is
right.
there a cost involved with removing the equipment?
There is
Is it
3,000,
considerable?
4,000, maybe $5,000.
Thank you.
okay. Well, if we,
But let me just ask, does the district, if it's rendered inoperable, does the district care in any way whether it's actually physically removed?
Well, he says that he can remove it within 90 days,
Okay.
so we would be fine with the 90-day removal
Okay.
date.
Go ahead,
okay,
Ms. Burke.
so we'll change, by the time we get to that point, we'll change the wording to be inoperable by Friday, March 15th, and removed within 90 days.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Balagopalan?
Can I ask Mr. Vernon a quick question before I go to Mr. Nahabedin?
Yeah, as long as we're clear on the record. So this is a question for Mr. Vernon.
Mr. Vernon, you indicated you went back on last year, December 2018, and did you issue a notice of violation or a notice to comply at that time when you saw the equipment in operation?
No, sir, I did not, because there was already a order of abatement in process.
Okay, thank you. Then, Mr. Nahabedin, you said when you took, you said you've been running this for 5 years. So the previous owner is the one who actually got the permits for the two machines?
Yes.
And do you realize, when you took over, you assumed, I mean, the permits were obtained, so they were good.
Yes.
But do you understand why the permits became inactive or expired?
Now I do. Now I do that. It needs to be renewed every year or so often.
Right, so did you not get the invoices, or when you took over the business because in 2016, you could have still reinstated it by paying a reinstatement fee. Did you not get the invoices, or you didn't understand what those invoices were?
I wasn't there most of the time, but one of the times that the inspector was there, I was there, and he explained to me what it needs to be done. And then from there on, I had some health problems and this office being so far away from our place, and I couldn't do it. I'm not good on the computers, because I guess they told me we can guide it on application on the computer. It was some negligence on our part.
And now is the mailing addresses for the invoice your house, or still the facility, the business address?
It's the business
Business
address.
address, but you're aware that you have to look out for those invoices and pay them in a timely manner?
Definitely, yes.
And you also can expect, since you submitted the application, a temporary annual operating fee to arrive very soon. And then, just so there's no confusion, that those are, and then a regular annual operating fees will come after that. So that you have to, and there are some other admissions fee you have to pay.
Yes, I do understand that.
Okay. Then, one question I had, and it escapes me in the moment. No, that's all. Oh, no, when you submitted those applications, was it last week you submitted those application as operating without a permit? And so you're aware that you can now operate your machine? Are you aware of that?
Yes,
Okay, so you are operating the dry cleaning unit right now?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to ask Mr. Nahabedian any questions? Senator?
I think he stated that the equipment was inoperable at this time. Is that correct, sir? Your equipment has been rendered inoperative at this time. It's not operating.
It's not operating, yes.
Right. When was it disconnected?
Exact date, I don't know, but.
Got an idea?
Sometime within 2 or 3 years. It's been more than a year, yes, definitely.
More than a year, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It was inspected since that period of time as well.
Wait,
I know what-
Are you asking a question? Just because Mr. Vernon seems to think you're asking him a question, but are we still with Mr. Nahabedian?
To your knowledge, did the inspector appear on site and took notice of the fact that equipment was inoperable?
Yes. When the inspector was there, one of the machines was not operating, only one was operating.
Let me just stop right there because I think we are confusing two terms. Mr. Nahabedian, you're saying you are not operating the unit, what's it referred to as? The amylin. Is that correct? You're not using it.
It's not operable for the last 2-3 years.
Have you disconnected it and capped the piping or disconnected the piping or removed the electrical?
Not that I am aware of, no.
Okay, two different things.
Not operable. What do you mean by that?
Pardon me? It's not operable, and we're not using it because it's not operable.
But it has not been disconnected. Or you don't know?
I don't know if it's totally disconnected or not, but if it's not, as I promised, by the 15th of next month, I will make sure that it cannot be operated.
As of today, it's not capped, the exhaust, whatever the case may be, and the electrical connection is still connected. Is that correct?
I think it is, yes.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Dr. Lerner.
This may have already been covered, but just for my own knowledge, when did you take ownership of the dry cleaner?
I think it's been 5 years because our lease was for 5 years and our lease ended up December 31st of 18. And one of the reasons that we couldn't come up for the apply because we were under the impression that we may have to move out of there. But late in December, we were able to negotiate a lease for 8 months as of now. We have a lease. So, and since it was required, the permit, so that I can operate this coming 8 months, we may get a little more lease later on, but we don't have it now. So that's why we had to get the permit so we can operate legally for these 8 months. And of course, if we get the lease elongated, then we will continue renewing our permit.
Okay. So it's my understanding, since you owned it for 5 years, you were the owner at the time the notice of violations were issued. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you were not aware of those notice of violations because, or were you, let me rephrase that. Were you aware that those notices of violation were being given to your, the people that you work for?
Yeah,
I
I
couldn't
believe this-
exactly
excuse me,
understand.
Objection asked and answered. I think he's answered that he was aware of the two previous NOVs.
Yes, he did, and also, so that has been answered. He did say he was aware, and also, let's remember that we now have a stipulated order for abatement, and beyond reasonable control, those things are not necessarily relevant. What's relevant is whether we have good cause to issue this. Do you have any other questions? Anyone have any other questions for Mr. Nahabedian? Or at this point, it looks like there are no other witnesses, so any other questions for Mr. Vernon or Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes, for Mr. Nahabedian. So If you don't get a renewal on the lease, what do you plan to move it to? Are you looking for another location?
At this time, I'm not looking for another location, and I don't know yet what to do after 8 months. Hopefully, we can get our lease extended and stay there. And if we don't get the lease, I don't know whether I'm going to stay in business or move to another location.
And the reason I was asking that question was just to let you know that before you move to another location, you need to get a permit. So,
Yes, yes, I do know. If I have to move, then we have to get a new permit for the new location.
before you start operating there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask if any member of the public wishes to be heard, and there is no member of the public. Ms. Pruitt, if you can give your closing, and also if you have a suggestion as to how long you would like the board to retain jurisdiction, my feeling is it should be probably at least 6 months to allow for this case to remain within our jurisdiction, just in case anything should happen with the permit for which the respondent has currently applied. But if you have a date in mind, please let us know when you're closing.
Yes, I won't be long. At this point, there is only one violation pending because he's cured the 203 violation by filling out the application and paying the fees. I think that the additional terms that were added to cap and disengage the electrical unit is sufficient for the district to allow him 90 days to remove the unit from the facility. And he says that he would know, based upon, I can't say the name, on the questions that were, came out, that he would know in 8 months whether or not he would be moving. So I would ask for the board to retain jurisdiction for 9 months.
Any other
And there's nothing further.
comments in
Thank you.
closing? Okay. Mr. Nahabedian, would you like to give a closing statement at this time?
No, I just thank you for your time, and I will be doing what the board is recommending, and I will cooperate and stay within the right way of continuing the business and comply with any permits or any other things that the board requires.
Thank you. Board members, anyone wish to begin discussion? I can, otherwise, unless anyone else would like to. I think there's certainly good cause to issue an order in this matter, and in this case, it's the stipulated order, as was brought out both by reading the petition and through testimony. This is an issue that's been going on for many years, with 3 different notices of violation and different iterations of machines at the facility. So I think at this point, it's very important to leave this facility completely in compliance as quickly as possible. And I think it was good to hear today when we came in that there was an application for one of them on file. And so that gives a temporary operating permit for that one, for the union machine. And I think that the way that with the changes, that the rendering of the Amblin machine inoperable will be done as quickly as possible. So I think there's good cause to issue this order. Anyone else have any thoughts as far as discussion? Okay. Oh, Ms. Byrd, did you? No. Yes.
I was just going to say that I agree. I could find good cause as well. And with the changes that we discussed, it'll bring everything to, into compliance sooner than had initially been proposed with the order. So I think I can find good cause, and I'm comfortable with it.
Mr. Balagopalan.
I was just going to add that they are in compliance because they submitted the application for and got a temporary permit to operate. I think there's the order is going to just ensure that they don't operate the inoperable machine and it's taken out and removed from surface so that it cannot be turned back on. So that's, but they, as of now, the facility is in compliance and can operate their dry cleaning equipment. But this order will ensure that the other unit will not be turned back on for whatever reason.
Okay. Yes.
Well, if I may, they're out of compliance by having the unpermitted unit there. They're in compliance with having applied for the permit for the union dry cleaning unit. So as soon as it is rendered inoperable, they will be in complete compliance, the Amelin unit.
Thank you. And we should close the hearing, but that's an important distinction. Although we do not need to find a violation for a stipulated order, there is in fact evidence of a violation just by simply having it on the premises and not rendered inoperable as the district would want it to be inoperable. Did you have any other thoughts or? Anyone else wish to add to the discussion before a motion? Okay, then I'm going to make a motion. In the matter of South Coast Air Quality Management District versus Bubbles Dry Cleaners, case number 6132-1, I move that we grant the order for abatement as appears in Exhibit 1 with the following changes. First, to the caption, I'd like to place at the end of the caption in parentheses the word stipulated to indicate that it is now a stipulated order. On page 2, lines 12 and 26, the dates of 2015 should actually, based on the evidence presented, be 2016. And then moving on to the order itself, page 4, line 28, it will read as follows, and then I'm going to take it slowly. Respondent shall render the equipment inoperable, comma, by disconnecting or capping the piping or by removing the electrical unit. Is that the correct terminology? The electrical components or unit? Connection? Connection, thank you. The electrical connection, by removing the electrical connection by March 15, 2019, and remove it within 90 days of the issuance of this order. And then I'll say it more slowly. Respondent shall render the equipment inoperable, comma, by disconnecting or capping the piping or by removing the electrical connection by comma, by March 15, 2019, and remove it within 90 days of the issuance of this order. Then on page 5, in the line provided in paragraph 2, this hearing board will retain jurisdiction over the matter until November 30th, 2019, which I believe is 9 months.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And that will complete my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Byrd seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Senator, how do you vote? Dr. Lerner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Balagopalan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. I just wanted to say two important things to Mr. Nahabedian. First of all, I want to make sure that you understand that all the dates that this, well, let me step back, that this order now constitutes the same, it stands the same as any district rule or regulation. So this order now must be complied with to the letter, or you could receive a notice of violation or be fined, or whatever penalties the district would enforce with. And so the dates of March 15th, the dates of 90 days for removal, those dates are not suggested dates. They must be complied with, or you're subject to enforcement for those dates. The second thing I wanted to just say is just moving forward, I know you mentioned in your testimony that you are now aware that you must permit and you must renew those permits, but you also mentioned health issues and being far away from your facility. And I just want to just reiterate that it's like any other mail or any bills or anything that you have in the usual course of your business. You just need to make sure that somebody is collecting those and that you're made aware of any mail from the district as well.
I will, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that about wraps that up. Any other business board members before we adjourn for the day? Seeing none, we are off the record. Thank you.